All right, Jackson, let's do a solid 10 minutes of questions here.
Let's do it. First question. Well, all of our questions are basically about the Warriors Wolves. First question. Pods was awful tonight, shot 1 of 10 and only had 2 assists. Should the Warriors shorten his minutes?
So this is complicated because I saw a lot of people saying stuff about how Podziemski was playing throughout the game, and I think it's more nuanced than I'm seeing on Twitter. Like I'm seeing people that are just saying he sucks, and then I'm seeing Tim Legler talk about how he's being, amazing in all these other ways. And I'm seeing Podziemski being really effective in every single way except for offense. And on that offensive end of the floor, I still think there's some poor shot selection going on. Like, on the one hand, you have to empower him a little bit to where because without Steph, you need offensive production. There's got to be a certain amount of leash that he has. But there were like 3 or 4 shots he took tonight where I was like, that's not the one you need to take. Like, and so you need to acknowledge that he's defending like crazy and he's rebounding extremely well and he's making good connective passing reads. But I would love to see him trim like 2 or 3 of those bad shots out. Another way to look at it, guys, is like this game was winnable. 3 or 4 possessions go a different way, you win. If instead of a 7 point lead, you get it up to 13, you probably win. And so I just think that there's still a little bit of refinement. Jackson, you mentioned to me before we went live, like just a couple of mistakes Kaminga made late, like just hesitating on that last little catch in the middle of the lane that allowed him to get stripped before he went up. Just like little tiny things that could make a big difference over the course of the series.
Yeah, it's tough. It's easy to nitpick Pods, but to your point, when Steph is out, you kind of got to just say play free to everybody, right? You can't be encouraging people to pass up open shots. Really, you're struggling to create offense. It doesn't mean take bad shots, but you can't be trying to limit your players, especially ones like Pods who are usually operating off a in a sort of secondary sort of situation. There were a couple very very open threes that he missed that would have been big
Yep.
run extenders for the Warriors, and I can definitely understand getting upset that feeling like he needs to make those. But the critique about the assist number, he's not playing Trey Young
No,
ball.
no.
You know, he's important to their offensive flow, even though he needs to make more shots, and he led the team in rebound. So, like it or not, this is sort of with Moses Moody playing this bad,
Yep.
especially like you don't have a lot of options. What are you supposed to do? Who are you supposed to give more minutes to if you're taking away Pods? If you're dropping his minutes, you know what I mean?
And he was -2 in 39 minutes. Like again, he's 1 for 10 from the field. He takes 2 or 3 better shots or like passes up on 2 or 3 bad ones. To your point, hit a couple of those run extending type of threes. All of a sudden he's playing a fantastic game and we're talking about like kind of like
Absolutely.
a special game in his career. The big thing that I'm seeing on film, he's shooting a little bit of a flat ball right now, so he's getting some unfortunate bounces. And this dude
Yeah.
is getting clean opportunities in the mid range for floaters. He has got to get that floater polished up. That needs to be a shot that he can hit consistently because that's there for
Yeah.
him. But once again with the floater, he's shooting it flat, and so he's not getting very good rolls on it.
And I think we got to also remember that he is still a very, very, despite him playing kind of not young style of game, he plays a very veteran game for the most part. I think he is still a very,
He's
very
22.
young player.
He's younger than Ant.
And because of that, he's going to have some really good, like he had a couple, 2 games, I want to say, in the Houston series where he was cashing all of his mid range pull ups. He's hitting those awkward step throughs. He's getting people up in the air. And then he had a couple of games where he shot really poorly. And that's for a guy who's no one is expecting to become a high level scorer. Like, I just don't think that's really in his range of outcomes, even though I think he's a very good player. That's what's going to happen to a guy who's in his, what is he,
Mhm.
3rd year? Like, it just sort
He
of is what it is, I
he's
think.
got such good lift and he's got a nice compact release to where like I do think he could be a very good catch and shoot player eventually.
Me
It's
too.
there. It's there. And that's the thing. Like this is with Pods. I'm glad you brought up his age because I think there's he does just play like a vet and he's been one of the guys that's
He
consistently
does.
been in Steve's like kind of inner circle of guys that he trusts and he gets so much more leeway for poor shooting result than Moody does because he's just such an impactful
He does
athlete in
everything
all these
else.
different areas.
Yeah,
But like ultimately, like this is a development process. And in the same way, like I feel like Austin Reeves has to make substantial improvements in terms of his strength dealing with like bigger physical players and holding up better defensively. With Pods, it's becoming a more consistent offensive player. We saw it. I mean, we watched that chunk of games there towards the end of the season. There was like a multi-month
he was
stretch where
balling.
Pods shot like 42% from three and was getting
Balling.
buckets and having some really big games. And so it's in there. But as we always talk about, it's like the hot stretches for younger players tend to be shorter and the slumps tend to
Yep,
be longer. And part of being a vet is like extending your success and limiting your failure. And it just takes time. It just takes time to figure that stuff out.
for sure. Next question about Anthony Edwards. Do you think with Ant was having a difficult time figuring out the defense in the first half, or did he have low focus or intensity? I believe Ant has a focus issue sometimes when there's no pressure. What do you feel like was going wrong for Ant in the first half compared to the
In
second half?
general, I felt like it was a combination of two things. The ball pressure just kind of rushing him into like kind of like attacks without a plan, so to speak. And then the jump shot, like the Ant's jump shot, he's a very good jump shooter, but he can go through kind of like extended stretches where it's like a little flat and he's leaving it short and it just is like a little bit off. And I think like some of that is natural, like you shoot yourself out of a slump and then suddenly the shots start to go down, and that's very much what happened in that second half. But my biggest thing with him moving forward is just like having a little bit more of like a controlled approach to his drives. It almost reminds me of like watching the young LeBron and young Wade type athletes where like they kind of just only know one speed going downhill, but
Yeah,
then all of them when they got older, they became these guys that would put guys in jail and do some more methodical work in the middle of the floor. And that's really the big thing for me with Ant and his growth is I think he just has to become a guy. He's never going to be able to process moving at that speed. He's too fast. He's too fast for his own good. Like he's got to find a way to like, oh, I see a seam, I'm going for it. But if I don't see a seam, don't just go and then improvise because that's where he ends up trying to knife through three bodies and he smokes a layup. It's like if you see an opening and you see congestion behind it, beat your man off the dribble, get him stuck on your side or behind you, and let the play develop. And they're going to be easier opportunities that come from that. I think it's all just part of his growth process.
I think that young LeBron and Wade comparison is so true. And I was thinking about it just in comparison to someone like Luca, who has never been a superstar athlete, so is forced, if he's going to be, a high level player, which he is, obviously, to play that stop and start, have the change of pace, master all of the sort of nuances of playing offense. Where when you're Anthony Edwards, you haven't had to until right
Mm.
now. Basically, you've been able to just be a super athlete and a great shooter, and that gets you pretty
Yes,
freaking
it
far.
does. Mm.
And that and he's also very young, and so now he's reaching a point where if he wants to take the next step, he's going to have to do those things, and I don't doubt he's going
That's
to.
the fun thing with Anthony Edwards. We were literally talking about this last night. Like he is so far from where he's going to be. Like this kid's going to get
Oh my
so much better.
gosh.
It's like
He's what,
he played
23?
he played like very much like a ram his head into the brick wall type of game tonight and still had 36. So like there's
Yeah.
a there's just a version of this kid's career that could go to like I do not know how good Ant can be, but I do know that he can be the best player in the league. Will he get there? I don't know. But like he legitimately has that potential. He's that type of special athlete. That dunk on Looney, there's like the dunk he missed, the one he missed on Trace Jackson Davis, the two hand like
Yeah.
cock back, like
He was
dude,
like
that was
coming from the
oh
side.
my
Yeah.
god. That like we were talking about this last night with respect to like Donovan Mitchell. There's like athletic and then there's transcendently athletic. And Ant's just one of
Yeah.
those guys. And that just
Yeah.
means that any skill development is going to leap him up another level. It's like, how did he produce at this playoff level in his playoff career? He's just been a steady 40% three-point shooter in his playoff career. Like that, because he gets such great lift and separation. Once he adds the methodical processing and all that stuff and all the in-between game, it's just going to, the sky's the limit for him.
For sure. Let's do one more question and then we'll go over to playback. If the Wolves win game 4, do you think Steph will push himself to come back maybe a little earlier than he should with their season on the line? Obviously, you can't commit to his word,
No,
but
if the Wolves lose game 4, I shut Steph down for the season. And the reasoning is pretty simple. Like the Warriors made it pretty clear to Steph by all indications, after they made the Jimmy Butler trade, that this was a 2-year window, that they were going to try this year and that they would try again next year. They have the assets at their disposal to make a substantial move this summer to anchor them with even more talent. They can go get potentially a guy like a Cam Johnson, or they could go get like a
we've talked about
or
Cam
like
Johnson
a
a lot.
Patrick Williams from Chicago, something like that. Like they can go get a good player that can be useful for this team and potentially have more firepower for this setting next year. I think we'll even see them look for. I think Cam Johnson is just such an obvious fit because it kind of checks two
It's
boxes. It's like
so
it's the
perfect.
clear three that they desperately need in terms of just like that rangy athlete that can guard the ball, but also that provides like legitimate scoring pop instead of inconsistent role player like maybe Pods is making a shot today kind of stuff. It's like Cam's going to average 20 points a game for you.
Cam's just a better version of
Yeah,
Buddy Hield, but in kind of every
absolutely.
category.
Great. That's a great point. Look at how useful Buddy's been in this offense. Like,
So he's been
yeah,
so good for
and
them.
like that would be the Buddy Hield's trajectory from his early career to what he's done for Golden State. Where like last year, in addition to him just being a guy that was a frustrating player for his entire career, was it 2 years ago that he played for Philly, or was it last year? I think it was last year. Yeah, the series where he
Mhm.
steps in for Philly and everyone's like, man, Buddy Hield's like useless in the playoffs. Like, what does he do? Like, and he's been like legitimately reliably good night to night for them for the last couple of weeks in a way that's been really important. And so if they can take Buddy Hield, which to your point is just literally a lesser player than Cam Johnson in every single way, and turn him into like a core part of their 5 best players in these lineups, then you can only imagine what a guy like Cam could do. But the point is, if you go down 3-1, you're not winning game 5 at Minnesota without Steph. Even if you did, like he's got to turn around and play again and again and again and go right into the next round. Like your best case scenario is coming back from down 3-1 and winning in a game 7 before you roll up either into the Denver Nuggets who will beat you up on the inside or the Oklahoma City Thunder who will beat you up on the outside. There's just like no version of that like Steph is going to be near the peak of his ability where he needs to be good enough to win that type of stretch of games. And so at that point, you cut your losses. You let Steph get a good summer of rehab. No chance of re-injuring that hamstring. We've seen a lot of examples in NBA history of like dudes hurting their hamstring and then not being the same, like Devin Booker, like James Harden, like. But a lot of that is like them trying to come back and play and re-injuring it and re-injuring it and re-injuring it. And so like there's a version of this where Steph could get 100% recovery and then you're just a better basketball team next year. I do think, and let me ask you this, Jackson, before we move over to playback. Do you think the Warriors have done enough to this point? Let's say they lose game 4 and they lose game 5. Do you think the Warriors have done enough to this point to justify making a really aggressive trade this summer and going for it next year?
I
I
do.
think so too.
I, I do.
This defense is real.
It's so real.
Their defense is real. Steph has proven that he can still reach that level in this postseason. Jimmy Butler has as well. Every time that they've needed him to do so.
Yeah.
There's still like we talked about the young players, Moody and Podziemski and Trace Jackson Davis and all those guys getting another year, Quentin Post getting another year. You make another nice move on the margins, you make a bigger trade. This is absolutely a team that has some legitimate chance next year, and so everything has to be a calculated risk. I wouldn't bring Steph back under any circumstances unless it's Game 6, and unless the series gets pushed to Game 6. That's the only scenario where I would consider it. All right, guys, that's all we have for tonight as far as YouTube goes. We're going to be heading over to Playback again. That's playback.tv/hoops tonight. You can also find it in the description. We'll hang out for another 45 minutes or so. We'll take callers. We'll just kind of hang out and talk hoops for a little bit longer.